afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world. You are very welcome to this live Q&A on English and Comparative Literature Master's degrees at the University of Glasgow. My name is Professor Bryony Randall. I'm currently the convener of the Modernities MLitt, which lives in English literature. So what I'm going to do first of all is introduce you to our panel, and I'll just go around the screen as it looks to me. So I'm a specialist. I myself am a specialist in modernist literature, particularly work on Virginia Woolf, but lots of experimental women prose writers of the early 20th century. That's my background, and I've convened this program on and off for a number of years. I see that there are already some hellos in the chat, which is fantastic, but a reminder that from the very beginning of this, do put in any questions you've got, and our panel of staff and students will do our best to answer them. So I'm going to hand over first of all to Paul to introduce himself.
Hello everybody, my name is Paul Castro. I'm on the CompLitt Masters Programme. I'll be convening for the first half of next session.
Great, thanks very much, Paul. Next on my screen is Jamie.
Hi, thanks, Bryony. So I'm Dr. Jamie Redgate. I'm the co-convener on the English Literature Programme, but the general pathway of the English Literature Programme. I'm sure that's something we'll get into shortly. And I'm the co-convener with Malika Willie, who it looks like may not be joining us today, so I'll do my best to cover any questions. But my focus is on American literature, but I'm also interested in animals and veganism and cannibalism, all sorts of interesting things. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks Jamie. And yeah, thanks for the reminder. So we're hoping that a colleague, if a new person appears, that's our colleague Dr. Malika Willie, co-convener of the English Literature MLitt with Jamie. So we're hoping to see her shortly. It's the usual tech situation that can never guard against completely. So I'm next going to invite Ashmita to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashmita. I'm from India and I'm a full-time student at the University of Glasgow under the general program of English literature.
Lovely, thanks Ashmita. Next on the screen is Shanti, whose Wi-Fi I hope is holding up.
It is hiccuping. Shanti Graheli, Comparative Literature and the current program convener. So you've been corresponding with someone that's been with me. I'm a specialist in book history and materialities in the early modern period. Lovely meeting you all.
Great, thanks so much, Shanti. You know it's live when there's a little bit of a glitch in the system, don't you? Next on my screen is Zara. Over to you, Zara.
Hi, I'm Zahra Tayyib. I'm a Saudi student in the MLitt of Comparative Literature.
Lovely, thanks. And finally, we have Jordan.
Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm a part-time student on the Modernities programme, and I'm Scottish.
Fantastic. So a great range of staff and students here to answer any of your questions. So do please get those questions coming in the chat, and we are very happy to answer them. The aim really of this session is to give you a bit more of a flavour of the distinctive features of these programs. Well, each of them has a distinctive flavour. There's very much crossover between the programs. So Modernities lives in English literature, has a more specialist focus than the general program that Jamie and Malika convene. But likewise, of course, comparative literature has a very distinctive disciplinary context, but there's a great deal of interrelationship between these programs. Students take each other's courses on different programs. In terms of the research cultures, there's a lot of interaction between these areas. So we hope we can give you a flavour of that in today's session. I'm not seeing any questions quite yet, but we do welcome, at least we've got one person visiting us from Louisiana, which is fantastic. So what we'll do maybe to get things started is just to ask our students if they can reflect a bit on why they chose this particular master's programme, whether there was something particular that appealed to them about coming to Glasgow to take this master's. I'm going to go with Ashmita again, just because you were first up. So we'll circulate who gets first on the podium. But Ashmita, anything from you?
I'll be honest with you. When I was in India and I was applying through all those to all the UK universities, the one thing that attracted me the most was the architecture of U of G, and my area of interest specifically is Victorian literature and like the 19th century. So the Gothic mansion-like kind of architecture, that was what kind of attracted me. Now that I'm here, I know for a fact that this is the best choice I've made, because obviously it's Scotland, and the people here are so warm and so kind and amazing, and the university itself is obviously one of the best. And I'm sure we'll get into the discussion later on why it was the best choice I could make, definitely.
Fantastic, that's Ashmita. Yeah, I mean, it is, among other things, a very beautiful campus. I mean, the terms Harry Potter have been used, of course, to describe the atmosphere of our beautiful buildings. But there's much more to it than that, and it's wonderful, Ashmita, to hear how your positive your experience has been since arriving. Zahra, would you say a little bit about what attracted you to your master's program?
Okay, so I do have to agree with Asmita. I also, like, not to sound shallow, but I also saw the university and I was very attracted to how it looked like. But for the program itself, I did enjoy the fact that the university here allowed me to design my own program, as in, like, I could take subjects from English Lit, from creative writing, and so many more.
Fantastic. That's lovely to hear. And actually, we've got a question that follows up on that a little bit in the chat. But what I want to do is to ask Jordan to give his reflections first, and then we'll maybe dig into that kind of the structure of the program a little bit. But Jordan, why are you here?
Why am I here? During my undergraduate, I really liked the modernist periods. And in Scotland, there's a Modernities program here in Glasgow and another in Edinburgh. And after kind of like weighing them up, I felt that the Glasgow one appealed to me more. So I don't really have that kind of outlook about Glasgow's campus though, because it's so local to me, I guess. So it didn't really occur to me that way.
But that, I think, is one of the things that's so great, of course, about our master's programs. We have this enormous diversity of backgrounds and people who just take this incredible Gothic building for granted, and others for whom it's something, you know, really extraordinary. So that's really great. Malika, I'm glad to know, is going to be joining us shortly, so she'll be able to say anything else about the further details about the general MLitt chat. MLitt program, beg your pardon. I'm looking across at the chat, which is why I had the slip there. There's somebody, Anonymous123, who's choosing the MLitt in English Lit, so I'm guessing that's the general program, which gives you that really wide range of choices, and has said that they like the wide range of subjects and would like to know when and how they will choose them and whether the list of subjects will change. Malika is just joining us, so rather than put her on the spot, I'm going to make sure that she's settled in. I'll maybe just hand over to Jamie for that question, a little bit about how that selection process works. Maybe then either Shanti and Paul can add anything they need to if it's slightly different in CompLit, so everybody knows. And then we'll ask Malika to introduce herself. So Jamie, do you want to say a bit about how the selection process works?
Yes. I'll maybe answer the second part of the question first, which is whether the subjects will change as well, because I often get emails about this. So it's good to address it. And I think there's always some sort of flexibility in the subjects, because it always depends on which staff are here and which staff are on research leave that semester and that sort of thing. So we can never, 100% guarantee the exact list of choices, but we can always sort of, because of the range of staff that we have here, the research expertise that we have here, we can always guarantee there are going to be subjects or classes, on particular subjects. So I think, as Mita mentioned, her interest in Victorian Gothic, and we've got such a good department on Victorianism and Victorian literature that there's always going to be some classes that speak to the 19th century, for example. We're always going to have some American classes. We're always going to have some on material cultures, always on some on fantasy and so on and so forth. So the very specific subjects that are the very specific classes we might have is always subject to a bit of wobble and change depending on staffing and things, but you'll know for certain that you can study certain periods and certain authors and things before you arrive. And then the process of selection kind of happens, as far as I remember, as you it's in September that the choices are made, aren't they, that you have your credits that are distributed across different classes, so you have a certain number of classes you can pick, and so everyone gets to enroll at roughly the same time, and then students are arranged into their groups at that stage. Students will have gone through this more recently than I have, and as will have Malika, so they can maybe speak to that more specifically. But it's kind of as you arrive in Glasgow that your courses get sorted.
Great, thanks, Jamie. And yeah, so and just as an example from the Modernities MLitt, there are two core courses that will always run, Modernities 1 and Modernities 2, which are kind of period-based courses. But other than that, as Jamie says, because our courses are often very research specialist and they're tied to individual or groups of research of our researchers here, there may be some shifts in exactly what the choice is, but rest assured there's always a lot of choice. What I might do actually at this point, because I see a subsequent question specifically on comparative literature, so I might invite Malika to introduce herself and then add anything she might want to about that question about course choice. Malika, over to you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness, this is so stressful. But my name is Malika Willie. I am the co-convener of the General MLitt program in English literature, and I am a lecturer in Black, British, and African diasporic studies. And to add to what Jamie was saying, you will find out about your courses, the courses that are available, maybe early August to late July, and enrollment will begin mid-August. Then you can pick all of your courses what you want to do, what you're interested in, but it's always good to enroll early because loads of students are interested in similar things and there is a cap for each course. So that's always important to pick the courses that you're interested in and try to enroll as soon as that is available to you.
Great. Excellent advice from Malika. Good to see you. Good to have you with us. There's a similar question, and this is specifically about from a prospective applicant asking about the comparative literature MLitt, also wondering if students are free to take courses from other humanities departments. So I don't know whether Shanti or Paul, you'd like to pick up on that question.
Yes, it's a great question, and actually that element, there's a great element of flexibility within the MLitt comparative literature, which Zara has already hinted at. And we build our community around our two core courses, just as the English Lit MLitts do. But then you are free to choose based on what is available from courses available across the College of Arts and Humanities. We've been hard at work in pulling together all the courses that are open to students from across college. So we will be able to advise you personally. My recommendation is always to use your personal statement to tell us about the specific interests you have. And incidentally, that's also the best way of actually getting into a program, to really tailor your statement to that program. And then in comparative literature, we have one-to-one advising meetings with you starting from around the time of enrollment, and we sign off on your choices. So you will explain to us how this fits in with your general ambitions and trajectories and plans for this 1 year of study with us. And then we keep building on those plans and create a course portfolio based on those plans. I don't know if Paul wants to add anything or if that just about said it.
No, that was great, Shanti. Thank you. Maybe the only thing to kind of pick up on what Jamie was saying about the kind of wobble with course choices that there can be. I think if you look on the course catalogue for CompLitt as it stands, I think all of the courses listed there should be running next year. So there's a fairly, at the moment at least.
Great, thanks, Paul. We slightly lost your audio at the end there. I don't know if that was us or you, but we got the main picture just in case you need to be a bit close to the microphone or whatever it might be. It'd be interesting to hear about our students' course choices, and obviously there'll be a range of things you've now taken. But I wonder if anyone would like to chip in with either a course that they were absolutely focused on taking and has completely lived up to their expectations, been, you know, a key reason they came, or maybe a course that you ended up taking that surprised you, that you weren't expecting to get, as you know, you were just surprised you maybe gave us something you weren't expecting. So is anybody willing to jump in with a thought on course choices? And maybe just go in the reverse. Zara, wonderful.
I can start, yeah. So initially I did get accepted into 2 programs. I got accepted into ComPlit and creative writing, but I did realize that with comparative literature, I get more flexibility with the courses that I choose. And so I ended up actually taking a creative writing class just this semester, or technically last semester now. And I realized how well it goes with the program itself in ComPlit. And even my English Lit class, which in the beginning I was kind of hesitant on. And then I realized that I could bring my own comparative perspective into the class, which not a lot of the other students did. So I did like how I could design the program based on how I like, but also bring a comparative perspective into my other courses as well.
That's so great, and I know, I mean, I'm sure other staff here will say the same, that it does make for a really rich classroom experience when you have those people with those diversity of other contexts and backgrounds. Jordan, any reflections on, you know, course choices that surprised you or course choices that hit the mark?
I think you're asking me that because, you know, the only one I had was yours.
Absolutely not. Completely neutral. But feel free to say what.
I will praise it. Well, as a part-time student in your first year, which is what I'm in currently, you only have one option, apart from kind of like your standards, Modernities 1 and Modernities 2 that Bryony mentioned earlier. But Bryony herself runs a course called Modern Every Day. And actually, before I applied to Glasgow, it wasn't at the top of my list of the courses that I was interested in. Because I felt like it was going to take me back to, it's very kind of like rooted in kind of sociology, ethnography. And I was a wee bit uncertain about kind of going back to that, which is what I did in my first undergraduate. But in fact, from a modernity perspective, it's actually really, really good. Everything about it just, it's very, very kind of like rich kind of subject area to delve into. I think even if you're not on the Modernities program, there's probably like aspects of it will appeal to you. I know like towards the end of the course, for instance, we even read some kind of fantasy literature that tied into the kind of core kind of structure. So I think it's a pretty good subject.
Thanks, Jordan. And on hand on heart, I honestly had forgotten that that was your one option. So it wasn't a setup, but it is really great to hear, and it's very useful actually to hear a little bit of a flavour of how the part-time structure goes. So you obviously have fewer courses each semester spread out over 2 years. I'm going to pass to Ashmita, but I'm going to put you on the spot doubly, Ashmita, because anything you want to say about course choices that particularly stand out. But I've also got a question asking about how the classes are structured. So they say, will we have 2 to 3 classes for each module every week? So I wonder if you might also just describe the structure of the teaching.
Okay, so to answer the first question, I actually remember really wanting the Modernities 1 paper in my first semester, but I was so much in demand that everyone took it, and I was like 2 or 3 days late, and it was fully booked. Fully like filled out, and I was very sad that I couldn't get that. But I ended up taking Canadian literature actually, which was completely new to me. That was a module that I had no idea about previously in my undergrad. I had never read anything about like American literature from Canada. So I was obviously a bit intimidated, but then it ended up being one of the best classes, actually one of the most interactive classes that I had in my first sem. So I would definitely encourage people like not to get like demotivated if you don't get the class that you want, because you don't know something might turn out to be the best that you probably didn't know. And to answer the second question, the classes are, I think I had, from my personal experience, we had 3 classes per week. So I had Canadian literature classes on Friday, and I had a digital memory. I had a communications class, which was from a different course from global communications. So you can take a paper from a different module altogether if it's like connected. And that was on Tuesday, and I had the research training course which was going on Mondays. So that's the weekly thing that you have, and the classes are for like, I think, a minimum of 2 hours, 1.5 to 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So exactly so. So 2 hours is the standard for each a master seminar, and full-time cadence you'll have 3 of those a week. But obviously there are also plenty of other opportunities to meet your peers informally, go to seminar groups, to talks, to workshops, to reading groups. So that's just the start really of the scholarly kind of opportunities that are here for you. I have got a question about modernity, so I'm going to answer that. And then there's a question that asks about how the courses are expected to relate to our thesis, or what we would call a dissertation. So I'll probably hand over to maybe Malika in the first instance, and then Shanti or Paul after that to say a bit about it, but just to warm you up for it. But I'm just going to answer this question from Victoria about the core modernities module. So yeah. So Modernities, the full title for the Modernities program is Modernities Literature Culture Theory. And the first course quite simply covers around 1890 to 1945. And the aim there is to give you a flavour of some key cultural movements in that period, but very much rooted in a kind of diversity that goes just beyond the core literary canon. So you're also going to be introduced to significant theoretical approaches that are developing at the time. So for example, psychoanalysis might be something you could spend some time on in a particular session. You might be looking at the development of a Marxist theory as part of what the literature you're looking at. So the aim is to give a sense of the embeddedness of literature in a broader cultural context. You'll also look at, for example, films or artwork. While it's a literature-based course, this diversity of media is very important. The important thing to say about so just to finish off, the Modernities 2, 1945 to the present. So what you would aim to have for Modernities 1 is a sense of what is this thing we call modernism. Is it sufficient to describe what's going on in this period? How we challenge it? And from 1945 to the present, we start with what is this thing we call postmodernism, and what other terms might there be to describe what's happening in the period right up to the present day. And the most recent text, the final text we look at, is about a decade old. But an important thing about these courses is that they're taught by a range of different academics, and in each case you are getting research-led teaching. So these academics will propose these sessions on the Modernities 1 and Modernities 2 based closely on their own specialism. So just to take an example from myself, because just so that I can speak from my own experience, I do a session in Modernities 1 called Short, which looks at a range of short fiction from the period, a really wide range of short fiction, and gets into the genre of short fiction. Why did it emerge at the time? What's the cultural historical context for the development of that genre? How we might theorize short fiction. So I hope, Victoria, that gives you a sense of the core modernities courses, and there are a little bit more detail on the website, but I'm happy to follow up with, if people have specific questions that haven't been answered today, I'm happy to follow up. Malika, would you be willing to answer this question about the thesis? So the question is whether the main courses are thought as an accompaniment to the dissertation, or is a dissertation something outside of course hours? So just say something about how the dissertation fits into the program.
All right, so for the general MLitt program, which I think is a wonderful program simply because you can construct your degree the way that you want. So if you're interested in Victorian literatures, you can sort of structure it to follow that line of understanding. If you're interested in more contemporary writings, you can focus on that. So what's wonderful about the general MLitt program is that you can do your dissertation on basically anything whatsoever. So at the end of your program, if you found that, yeah, you did tons of stuff in romanticism, but you're interested in, I don't know, post-colonial experiences in Victorian literature, then that's perfectly fine. If you're interested in something fantastical, that is fine too. If you're interested in something modernities focused, that is fine. What the general MLitt program gives you is the opportunity to do everything that you're interested in, or at least we try. As Mita said, sometimes when you try to get into a course, it might be filled. But because we have such a magnificent range of courses, you will not be disappointed at all, because all of the courses are fantastic. And I can say for a fact that my course, Slavery, Creolity, and Caribbean Textual Cultures, is amazing. You will love it.
That's true. Let's see. Just Shanti, Paul, do you want to say anything else? There's another question that's come up, which is a sort of similar question. Should all our assignments, the essays we submit as part of our coursework, be related to the topic we choose for our final dissertation? And as Malaika has indicated, the short answer to that is no, it doesn't have to be. But I don't know whether you want to say any more about that kind of development to the dissertation stage of the program.
Yeah, and actually I'll go back also to Julia's question, as I think she's actually taking the MLitt comparative literature. So I can say that for comparative literature, our second semester core course is a dissertation companion. So it actually takes you by the hand as you develop your dissertation project. And which means that although it is, it has separate assessment, which is an annotated bibliography, a presentation, and a project application related to the same concept you're developing for the dissertation. Although they're all different assignments from the dissertation itself, it still gives you a chance to build the process and the thinking as you go along. So that's something you do in the second semester. And of course, you can take the courses that you're interested in, but for us, the one thing we ask you at the beginning of the academic year is what you want to get out of your master's program. Are you here to branch out and to explore as many different things as possible, or do you have a specific plan in mind? And we recommend that we tailor a plan that actually fits with your vision for the year that is coming. So I think it really does change from student to student, and that's why we have the individual conversation to find out what it is that you're looking for. Paul, was there anything you wanted to add?
I was just going to say that the relationship between the different assignments and different courses you do in the final dissertation is really dependent on your own developing interests and ambitions. It's worth saying that in the first semester we do have two general courses, one that's a core course, which is an introduction to comparative literature, which covers lots of theoretical approaches and different ways of operating as a comparatist, and an optional reading workshop course, which does something sort of runs in parallel and looks at how we can engage with a text in different ways, and kind of move from our initial interest in a particular work to how we might start to construct an interpretation of it. So some students sort of come in with a very strong idea of what they want to do for their dissertation, and they either refine that or get some new ingredients from those two courses. Or some students come in and don't necessarily know what it is they want to do with the dissertation, and both of those courses do provide spaces where you can try out different theoretical approaches. And generally, by the time that we get to the hard decisions about dissertation, students have usually sort of found where they want to go. And I hope that's true for Zara, I think.
Thanks so much, Paul. That's really helpful. Yeah, I might hand over actually at this point to our students. So 2 of our students are full-time, so we'll be embarking on the dissertation stage. Jordan is a part-time student, is entering the kind of, a starting point, but there's more time for the dissertation because the dissertation is completed in the second part of a part-time degree. But maybe Ashmita, just to start with you again this time, any reflections on how the dissertation relates to, or is just been different from the courses you've taken, how that thinking might have evolved? That would be interesting to hear.
So again, obviously it differs from person to person. For me, it has absolutely no connection to any of the courses that I'm taking. I am actually working for my dissertation. I'm working on like the complicated and strained mother and daughter relationships in literature, which is obviously I'm borrowing a lot of material from some of the texts which I have read for my courses, but theme-wise, not as much connected. So, for example, in my Canadian literature course, again, I read a novel called Hetty Dorval by Ethel Wilson, and this theme was very prominent in terms of like Hetty Dorval and her complicated relationship with her mother. So that is when it actually struck me that okay, this is a theme that I'm really interested in. So you never know like which part of which text and which course will actually strike you as okay, this is something I'm interested in and this is something I could work on. So yeah, it doesn't have to be connected to your course. It could be connected to your course. It really depends.
That's really interesting, though, to hear that again, a course that you weren't expecting to take, that you sort of, it was the one you ended up having to take, actually is fed into the culmination of your master's project, the dissertation. That's really interesting. Yeah, great. Zara, do you want to add any reflections?
Yeah, so I went into the course with a broad idea of what I wanted to do. I wasn't too sure exactly, but I also haven't been a student for like 3 years before I started the program. So I just want to say that the very first core course, we actually do get an assessment that isn't graded that helps us kind of go back into like the whole school mood. So that was great. And then the second semester, I will say that the second core course was actually really great in helping me prepare what I wanted for my dissertation. We also had like a meeting with Shanti on what we wanted to do. And so that did help me develop my idea further because I am doing mine on Book Talk, which isn't something that we really studied, but I mean, it's very new. So obviously it's not really like a teachable subject, but it did help me, like the meeting did help me realize that I could relate it to reader reception, which really helped me in deciding what I wanted. And all the assignments we had for the second core course also really helped me with fully knowing like, okay, this is what I wanted to do.
That's really helpful. And I think I hope my colleagues will think the same, is that even if the material you're going to write on for your dissertation are completely different from the other different texts from the ones you've looked at, the aim is very much that over the course of the taught elements of the program that we're giving you the tools, the critical skills, the frames of reference to develop a project that is your own independent thinking. I might circle back to Jordan. Now, Jordan, obviously your situation is slightly different because you're a part-time student and your dissertation won't be for a while yet. So you might have a couple of things to say about that. But another thing that I was just struck me when Zahara was talking about having a couple of years out of study is that you mentioned, Jordan, that what your undergraduate degree was in, and it might be interesting to hear about how you moved from, because I think you're right in saying your undergraduate degree was kind of more a sociology area, and a little bit about your background and then how that segued into the master's. So a couple of things you might share with us, if that's all right.
Yeah, my university history is a bit of a mess, to be honest. I did social sciences when I left high school, segued to games development, segued to English literature through the Open University, which is how I got my undergraduate degree, and now doing this master's in modernities, obviously. I was just going to, I don't know if it's worth jumping off, but something you were saying, Zara, actually, about kind of like developing your ideas. Obviously, I do still have a whole year to go, but I think something worth mentioning was also that like you're more than welcome to like contact certain professors, obviously, within the university itself. I've already kind of spoke to Bryony about one of my ideas in a wee bit of depth, and then I had a meeting with a Professor Vasiliki earlier this semester, and it's just worthwhile. Kind of like, I think one good thing about any of the courses you're doing, because they're research based, is you know what are good kind of points of contact for certain information. So even though you might not get them as an advisor, then at least they can point you further in the right direction, which is pretty helpful.
That's brilliant, and that's great to hear. I mean, that's what I think. That's what we want the students to feel, is that they can approach staff. We always love talking about our research specialism. I mean, we know you're singing our tune if you come to us and want to talk about something we're interested in. So that's really positive to hear. That you mentioned about dissertation supervision, and there is a specific question about that maybe let's have Jamie in a minute. Jamie, I'll ask you to outline how often students might meet with their advisor, their supervisor as we call them, and whether students get to select their advisor or whether they're assigned to someone. But I'm just going to tick off a question from Victoria. Now, the American Modern Literature MLitt isn't running this year, unfortunately, but you've asked about the Modernities MLitt theory, the embeddedness of modernism in an art, film, culture and theory. I mean, I think what I'd say is, if you're interested in American literature and American poetry, there are definitely opportunities to explore that on the Modernities program, and in a way that is, as you indicate, embedded in that kind of wider context. And if you're particularly interested in this period of literature, for example, again, the text that we concluded Modernities 2 with is a text by Claudia Rankin, Citizen. She's a poet, it has poetic elements, so there's obviously discussions there about the kind of poetic legacy of a text like that, just as an example. So I hope that helps. But I'll maybe hand over to Jamie just to outline the kind of dissertation supervision allocation process, and then how supervision actually kind of rolls out.
Just very briefly to that American question as well, we had a lot of students last year who wanted to do the American pathway but couldn't because it wasn't running, but who effectively built a sort of American degree because of the way the general works. They put together different American or American adjacent courses to kind of make one of their own, if you like. So that's still an option. The dissertations, so yes, it's not so much that you pick your supervisor, although if you, as Jordan was saying, make contact with the supervisor, you have someone in mind that you're already talking to, that can often steer how the assignment's done. What tends to happen is that the conveners of the courses will assign all the students. What the students do is send us their proposal for their project, what they want to write about, and then we try and assign you to supervisors depending on, again, who's available and what supervisors, how many people a certain supervisor can take on, that sort of thing. And we try to match you up as best as we can. And then once that happens, which is everyone's already been assigned a supervisor at this stage. So the students, when the supervisors probably have met already, and what we tend to advise is that you meet 3 or 4 times over the summer. So you're working on your project over the summer up until the deadline. And that supervision or those meetings kind of happen as best suits you. So you and your supervisor will have a conversation about when is best to meet, and you can kind of dictate that in some ways, depending on when you're both available and when you want your work to be checked and when you have ideas to share and all these sorts of things, or when you're feeling stressed about it and you want to talk to someone. So it's really dependent on each individual student as to when you meet, but you'll kind of develop that relationship with your supervisor, and it will unfold as it needs to, and the supervisor's there to support you as you do that.
Brilliant, thanks. That's really helpful, Jamie. The next question might also be something that your dissertation supervisor might be interested in supporting you with. So I've got a question asking, do students get support in publishing research and presentations? So I guess that might be in giving presentations at conferences during the course. I wonder if any of our conveners would like to say anything about that from their perspective.
Are we speaking about presentations, as in?
Yeah, I'm assuming the question is, do students get support in publishing, research and presentations during the course? So if you're still there, Anushwa, do clarify. I think you're probably talking about giving presentations at conferences. Some courses do have presentation elements, but they're definitely asking about publishing. So again, if there's anything we can, I mean, I suppose my initial thought from a master's at master's level, at PhD level, when we're supervising PhD students, it's absolutely a core part of what we're developing as a skill. At master's level, it's not necessarily a part of what people are wanting to do or aspire to in their master's program. But if people are interested, then I think we'd want to give them that support for possible publication. Again, anything from my colleagues about that point about possible publication or conference presentation, Shanti?
Yeah, I mean, I quite agree that it's a bit early, but of course, never too early to start thinking and considering the potential, of course, of any coursework that your markers has noted as being of publishable quality. So always watch out for the feedback you receive. We've had students in the past who've taken their essays, for example, one of their essays, all the way to conference presentation, and we have a natural venue for this in comparative literature, which is our annual postgraduate conference in comparative literature and translation, which happens in May every year. And actually, any offer holders are very welcome to join either in person or online, and we might circulate the link to sign up. And this is an opportunity for students to either present as a paper or present a poster, usually based on their dissertation project. And in the end, we always recommend that you take it one step at a time, see how the poster goes, see how the paper goes, and perhaps continue developing into a publication. We occasionally run skill sessions on publishing your first article if there is demand. So we always welcome hearing from you personally what kind of development you're interested in so that we can tailor it to each cohort every year.
Great, thanks, Shanti. I don't know if any of the students have experience of or are at in that level of ambition of possible publication. Yeah, Jordan.
I mean, I don't have the direct experience myself, but I suppose it's maybe worth mentioning that as part of kind of like mailing list in the university, you're invited to like submit papers. Like I was just looking at my email actually while Shanti was speaking, and I've like pinned something about the Kelvin Review at Glasgow, which put out a call for like small abstracts. So I think the opportunity is there, and I know in the Modernities program, one of my fellow students, Triasha, I think, did present a paper somewhere, not in Glasgow, but I think she took the opportunity of traveling to another campus somewhere to submit something. So the opportunity is there, I think.
Great, thanks so much for mentioning that. Yeah, Paul, did you want to come in?
Just to pick up on something that Jordan said, and other people have been saying, I think maybe the one-year frame of the masters is a little narrow for publication, but certainly if people are doing work or developing work that they want to go on and publish, we will advise. And just say there are opportunities to get involved in the broad area of publishing at Glasgow. There's the Kelvin Grove Review that Jordan mentioned. There's another journal called E-Sharp, and they're run by students. So of course, and again, while the masters is quite a narrow time frame, there are opportunities there to get involved in the broad area of everything that goes into publishing, and that can be a really useful way of reflecting on how you want to develop and place your own work.
Great. Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Really important. And yeah, we like to hear that, Jordan, responding to the many opportunities you'll see coming through your email about a range of different events that are happening on campus, that we really want you to feel part of that kind of scholarly community. You may only be here for a year, but to give that feeling that you can participate in a wide range of kind of intellectual and academic activities. I'm aware of time, so I want to make sure we get the chance to answer these questions properly. And I've got a question here, which is possibly related, asking if either the students or faculty could speak towards perspectives or experiences of the MLitt programs as a bridge towards PhD work at the university. I think again, if I'd kick off, I'd say is that there is certainly what we'd call a pipeline. So a number of our master students may well go on to PhD study at the university if they get particularly if we see the dissertation is key there, and if they've developed an idea that they really can see could expand into or branch into or be adjacent to a PhD project, then that's a really good ground for a PhD. At Glasgow, if that's if they're well aligned with our research specialism or possibly elsewhere, again, we can have, particularly your dissertation supervisor might be a person to have conversations with about that, but it might not be, as Jordan says, there are many other members of staff who can assist. The timing of graduating and starting a PhD can be a bit tricky, so you sometimes might get accepted to your PhD program subject to completing your master. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. It is a full 12-month program. But the short answer is that it's absolutely something that we are delighted to try to support for the students for whom that's the right path. Anyone else want to jump in on that question of the MLitt programs as a bridge to PhD study? Have I said enough?
I can only confirm that happened for me, because I did my MLitt at Glasgow and I did my PhD there, and that it was very specifically the courses I chose set up my thesis, and my thesis supervisor became my PhD supervisor. And looking back, that was maybe quite a lucky sequence of events that it happened that way, but it did sort of fall into place for me. So it was definitely one became the bridge to the other. Definitely.
Fantastic. There you go, living proof. So that's really great to hear. I'm aware that we've just got 10 minutes left, and I think there's a good question that's come through that maybe will offer us quite a broad one for our students. So Julia's asking she's specifically asking for the full-time students, but I think for everyone this might be a useful question about time management. So she says, how is the management between the courses and the dissertation writing? Does it feel overwhelming, or is the workload entirely manageable? So just before I hand over to our students, what I would just clarify is in our structure, it's purely taught courses from September to March. So that's when you're doing your coursework, your courses, your taught element. It's only from March onwards that you start thinking about and working on your dissertation. So you're not having to do them in tandem. Of course, you might start thinking about your dissertation right at the very beginning, but in terms of what's expected from you, no one's expected to start work on the dissertation probably until really almost into April. So that might clarify a little bit. But what I would maybe do is interpret this more broadly as a question about workload, and also about, the things outside of academia. Ashmita had a lovely reflection opening about how welcoming and warm Glasgow is as a city. You might gather that I'm not from Glasgow, so I've moved here from elsewhere, but I can confirm that it is a fantastically open and welcoming city. The slogan is "People make Glasgow," and it sounds a bit cheesy, but it's totally true. So I don't know whether, again, I'll maybe just start off with Zara to say something about how you manage the workload, how you manage that work and play master student life.
Okay, so I will say that we do start thinking about our dissertation in Jan with our second core course, which I will say saves a lot of time. And so, I mean, I'm still kind of in the process of working on my dissertation. So I think in terms of managing time, just do everything on time, honestly, because that way it does give you time to join society, explore the city. And I did realize that if I do end up doing all my coursework on time, I ended up with a lot of time to actually go outside and see Scotland. So just do your work on time.
Thanks so much. Great advice. Ashmita, do you want to say anything about workload management and the postgraduate master's experience?
Yeah, I think Zara provided a nice cue to what I was going to say, which is Scotland is such a beautiful place. You would be missing out if you don't actually go out and explore. I'm actually part of a society called the Glasgow University Walking Society, which takes us on like hikes and like outdoor activities. And it's called walking, but it's like obviously more than walking. It's a bit tiring sometimes, but it's fine. And they organize like hikes every month, every weekend, so that keeps you on your toes kind of. And other than that, I would say in terms of academic workload, the courses that I have taken, I've been really blessed with. The professors have been really considerate about kind of distributing the workload in a way that they've selected the heaviest and the thickest books for the weeks where we have the kind of like a big gap where we work on our midterm assignment. So that is the week that we don't have classes, which is the reading week, which is basically we don't have any classes the 6th week of every semester, which is when we have like the thickest book to read for the 7th week. So that is really considerate of the professors in the courses that I have taken. That is something. And yeah, I agree with Zara in the sense that you should definitely not pile up your coursework. But I would also encourage you to just go out and join so many. There are like I think 200 plus clubs and societies in Glasgow in the university, so definitely do not miss out on that. People are really welcoming, people want you to join. And if you go there, everybody's new, so I mean you're not alone, so you're gonna find your place. It's really easy.
Thanks, Ashmita. That's great. Yeah, walking, hiking, maybe, but my experience of such things is also there's a lot of tea and cake involved to keep you going. My sense, yeah, definitely. And Jordan, just in case, because there may be people here who are considering the possibility of part-time study, and we do always have a significant number of part-time students taking the master's program. So, are you able to say a little bit about how you've been able to fit the master's program in around the rest of your life?
I can try. Yeah, I balance my part-time study at Glasgow against a part-time job. I don't recommend doing the kind of job I do, where I work early hours. That makes it much more tough than it has to be. But you definitely can balance it against your working kind of life for sure. I think, as Sarah and Ashmita says, though, you do need to kind of prioritize as much as possible getting the work done so that you can find the time to relax in between every class, more or less. But it is manageable, and I think as one of the really big benefits I think part-time study is that for your first year you only do 2 courses per semester. And it's been a bit tougher this semester because there's a few extra assessments associated with the dissertation course, research training course that you do. And that's kind of took place around the same time. But my next year, I'm only doing like 1 course per semester, which is such a great way of kind of like taking the pressure off. You obviously also have the wider kind of time span, I guess, to actually think through what you want to do for your dissertation as well. So I can't recommend that highly enough, to be honest, if you can do it.
That's great. Thanks so much, Jordan. And just to note that, of course, we recognize that finances are often a challenge. And for many people, what might make the master's doable is a part-time setup. And as Jordan has said, we do really think about structuring those 2 years in a way that is appropriate to the demands of the part-time setup, and mean that there's the real focus in the dissertation year on that element of the program. We are drawing to an end, so I'm going to stick around for a moment in case there's anybody who has got a last final question. But while we're just keeping an eye out for that in case anything comes in, is there anything from any of our panel members that hasn't been said that we feel we need to say, a kind of parting shot, a kind of one-line summary? Why should people come? Anything like that?
You should come to the University of Glasgow because our staff, they're fantastic human beings. They're caring, thoughtful, and they know a lot, and they're going to support you during this process. And I think that Glasgow is a wonderful city and you're going to have an amazing time. So come over and you can do modernities, you can do the general MLitt or comparative literature. But either way, you're going to have an amazing time and you're going to have a fantastic degree.
Malika said it. She said it. Fantastic. I mean, I think that couldn't be a better way to close. So I'm going to wrap us up now as we're approaching 3 o'clock. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. We hope it was helpful. I know my colleagues have been putting lots of links in the chat for sources of further information. And we are obviously present as conveners for any detailed questions about the academic side. But I'm so grateful to all my colleagues for joining me, and in particular to Ashmita and Jordan and Zahra for taking time out of their studies or working to spend time with us today. We really appreciate it. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we hopefully maybe see you in Glasgow before too long. Thanks very much.